Along with you on this Monday edition of The Exchange, joined by my cohorts, pals, and buddies, Charlie Evers, Marianne Michaels, and Fritz the Night Owl. Before we get into the program, we do need to thank our sponsors, though, as The Exchange is brought to you by the Ohio Neck and Back Pain Relief Center, Scott M. Gray, D.C., across from the Marion Center between TSC and Kroger. Call 740-386-6580. Night Owl Theater, located on the net at fritzlives.com. For more info, email nightowltv@yahoo.com. And Bucyrus Placemats. To put an ad in, call 419-562-8473. Located at 116 Wayne Avenue in Bucyrus. Also on the net at bucyrusplacemats.com. And by the way, you can call Wayne. Not only is it on Wayne Avenue, but you can call Wayne at 419-562-8473. And now, as we do each and every day, we're going to head over to our good pal Charlie Evers for some fascinating facts. Charlie?
All right. Well, last week, it was a great week for the wildflowers and for morel mushrooms in Marion County. In fact, I was doing a bike ride last week, and I encountered a man coming out of a woods, carrying kind of discreetly a little sack in his hand. And I wanted to tell him, you only get several of those. Morel mushroom hunters like to go unnoticed if they can, because it's, do you know how much they're selling for?
How much?
$35 a pound, if you could find them. I think I would eat them before I sold them. But the trilliums are in full bloom, or were, and I think they're the state flower, three-leafed white flower, beautiful. Some of the woods are carpeted with these trilliums. The wild strawberries are in bloom. The only thing is, once the strawberry forms, the poison ivy grows at the same time, and the poison ivy and the ripe strawberries meet, and you can't pick them without getting poison ivy.
What's the disease you get from eating bad mushrooms?
Death.
Death.
Yeah, death.
That's one heck of a disease.
Yeah. Terminosity, it's called.
No, they call it something, Charlie. What is it? It's a fungus or something you get. Mushroomitis.
Is it?
Mushroomitis.
Well, whatever it is, it lasts a long time.
Little known fact. Indefinitely.
A lot of mushroom hunters are, their presence is denoted by granite rocks, tombstones.
You know what I just I just blocked out what you said. Are you sitting on the floor?
Nearly.
I mean, what's going on? I caught a glimpse in the monitor. It looks like you're sitting on the floor.
Like they used to say, I'm feeling mighty low.
Could somebody prop Charlie up during the break? Now, if you don't know what to do tonight, or if you're sitting on the floor, sitting in a chair, sitting anywhere, here's something you can do. You can watch a great movie picked out by the man himself, the Flick Pick, with Fritz the Night Owl. Fritz?
Hey, thank you, Scott. I was going to say, it's really interesting to do this show because people essentially are seeing how a radio show is done because it's on the radio and they're actually seeing behind the scenes of a radio show. Of course, movies aren't so great on radio, but apparently back in the old days, they used to take films and they would put them on things like the Lux Radio Playhouse, and they would have like all of the movies would be, or a lot of the movies were made so that you could see them on radio. Anyway, it's one of the unique things about the Exchange in that you're getting a behind-the-scenes look at how radio is done, and it allows me to hold up my notes without looking like I've got everything memorized. Anyway, the movie we have for you tonight is starts off a very happy, easy romp, but ends up with sniffles and tears. Movie's from 1957, one of the most requested movies I've ever had. Still I get requests. It's a bubbling shipboard romance, and it is called An Affair to Remember. Our stars are Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr. Of course, Deborah Kerr, there is a Deborah Kerr, K-E-R-R, and then there was John Kerr, K-E-R-R, which is correct. Well, it depends on whether you ask Deborah or John. Nonetheless, Cary Grant, Deborah Kerr, shipboard romance. They meet on board ship. They have a grand time. Kind of the flirting turns into love. They dock in New York. They're in love. They agreed to meet, I think, in 6 months on top of the Empire State Building. Carrie is up there on top of the Empire State Building. Deborah is on his way to meet him, on her way to meet him. She gets hit by a car. They don't make contact. Carrie doesn't know, and Deborah doesn't want to tell him because she thinks now he's going to be in love with her because she's crippled for life. So somehow, accidentally, he finds out about her, and as I say, the first part of the film is all light and happy and bubbly and cheerful. Cary Grant, Deborah Carr, but the ending, hey, there won't be a dry eye in the house. Definitely, if you watch this when you want to be sitting comfortably, have a big box of Kleenex and puffs or tissues next to you, won't be a dry eye or an unsniffled nose at the end of An Affair to Remember. The only advice I can give is that if you're lucky enough to discover love, don't get away, take advantage of it when it's there, keep it going now. Waiting for 6 months and meeting on top of the Empire State. I think they did that in Sleepless in Seattle too. Bad form. Say, hey, what's your phone number, what's your address, what's your email, what's your cell phone, we'll call every day. That little bit of advice to satisfy the romantics in the crowd. An Affair to Remember, Cary Grant, Deborah Carr, think you'll like it.
Sounds like a great movie. And you know what's interesting? Since I've started doing this show with you guys, I never liked movies. I have to be honest with you. I'm not a movie person. I never went to the theater as a child. I didn't really watch movies on television. I like documentaries. I like interview shows. I've always liked that sort of thing. Now, I haven't started watching movies since we started doing this show, but I'm paying more attention to the titles because I know a lot of titles that come up here, like Lemon Drop Kid, right. And then a few weeks ago, the one with Jack Lemmon.
The Apartment.
The Apartment. I went home that night and bam, it was on AMC or something that night.
The Affair to
What
Remember
timing?
is one
What
of my
timing?
favorites.
Yeah, what timing? They must have been watching the show at wherever. I wanted to say real quickly for the nostalgia people, Vic Damone, if you're old enough to remember Vic Damone. Good-looking guy, nice voice, rival of Sinatra and Dean Martin in that vintage, Nat King Cole and so forth. Very, very popular in the 50s. Vic Damone sings the title song. So, Vic Damone fans, hey, An Affair to Remember.
That's
Vic
one of
Damone
my
to remember.
favorites, Fritz. That's one of my favorite all-time movies.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
Right.
And yeah, I could watch it 3 or 4 times.
It's like a potato chip. You can't just watch
That's
it once.
right.
You know, a movie that I saw recently, I can't remember if I said it on air or not, but Frost Nixon, which is not an older movie.
Oh, yeah.
It is so good, so close to what actually happened, and it's a Ron Howard film, and Ron Howard can direct.
Yes.
He is great at that. One of those people who's made the transition very nicely. Do want to get into a current event today. Last week, very interesting news. One of the long-time Hollywood political marriages looks like it's separating. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver have decided to separate after 30 years of marriage. No word on divorce yet, but separation has taken place. I know a lot of kids from that relationship. And some media outlets have been reporting, don't know if it's true or not, that she has been miserable for a long time, was the quote that they used. Marianne, what do you think of Maria and Arnold? Opposite sides of the political spectrum. When they got together, he was a movie star, decided he'd rather be a politician.
I think I was surprised at the wedding when it happened because I thought they were totally two different people. So I was surprised about that. And I was told, though, I mean, I saw a report just recently, and it said that it was a mutual and, you know, that they both agreed that that's what they should do, and it was amicable is what the word was, so who knows?
You know, it's very interesting to me. You know, she comes from this Kennedy dynasty, and he was Mr. Republican, certainly during the first George Bush campaign for him very hard, became Republican governor of California. But she was in the news business for a long time, and how different must the last 4 or 5 years have been for her to have her husband be the governor of California.
And I thought that all the time. I really did.
I mean, I don't know what the conversations at home must have been like.
Well, I'm sure they talked politics.
I'm sure they did, for him to become a policymaker rather than just a spokesperson,
Yes.
that's a big
And
leap.
of course, he wasn't that successful as governor, apparently, because California really is in sad shape.
Has been for a long time, and
Yes.
Gray Davis was there before, and he was not doing very well, which is how Arnold wrote in. Charlie, what do you make of a long time? I mean, this is not a hop, skip, and a jump marriage. This is not 3 or 4 years. 30 years.
I always thought it didn't seem right, just like Mary Ann said, they didn't match, especially physically. Can you imagine Maria Shriver with the muscles? But no kidding, but yet they were married a long time. I understand they're gonna stay together during separation.
Is that right?
That's right.
How do you stay together during separation?
It's very difficult.
I've never heard of such a thing.
It has to be well planned.
That you really have to plan. It's quite a trick to be separated and together
Oh, it is.
at the
Yes,
same
indeed.
time.
But it's cheaper. In fact, if they didn't get divorced, that'd be a lot cheaper.
I don't think there'll be a divorce unless they stay separated for quite a while. Interesting thing, though, he's just, not too far from when he completed his term as governor. Do you think that maybe they waited to announce this?
Oh, definitely,
Yes,
yes.
definitely.
Well,
Because that would have interfered with the whole
But he's going back into the movies.
aura.
Yeah, but
He's returning to,
how long do you think they would have waited? I mean, how long do you think it was bad, I guess is what I'm saying, if they
well,
waited?
probably quite a while. I really do think that.
That's tough. Do you ever think any political couple, big-time political couples, the presidential, Betty and Jerry and Pat and Richard and Nancy and Ronald, do you ever think any of them stayed together just for the politics and then afterward? Because there's never been, to my knowledge, a president get divorced after his term was up. We've had one divorced president, but never after.
I think a lot of times that's the situation, but I know that the Reagans were very much in love with one another. I mean, they truly were, and I think Laura Bush was very supportive of her husband, and I think Jerry Ford really treated his wife wonderfully, because she had that problem, and so I think that marriage was okay. But you never know what goes on behind closed
Bill
doors.
and Hillary.
Oh, well, they had their ups and downs, but they're still together.
Why?
I think they totally respect one another. I really do. She's very bright, he's very bright, and they love government, and they like to be involved with politics, so I think that's the reason they're together.
Do you think had they got divorced, which certainly people do for that sort of thing, affairs and infidelity, do you think she could have won the Senate seat in New York, which led to a presidential run, which led to Secretary of State?
Well, that's hard to know, but she's very, very capable. And,
Oh, sure.
she won on her own merits, not on her husband's merits. I'm sure of that. So I don't know, it's really difficult to determine that.
Fritz, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Maria Shriver, did you see it coming?
I didn't even know that they were having problems until I heard it on the show today. I just think that it goes back to one of these things that there are cases where opposites attract, and who was it? Carville and his wife are
Oh, my.
Magdalene.
incredibly politically active on opposite sides of the scale, and yet they apparently get along well. And in terms of, say, like a lot of marriages today, with all of the stuff going on, sometimes you just kind of drift apart and your interests fail, and the kids are growing up, and you both have your different roads to go. And so, say, as for first ladies, now let's see, the first one I remember was being aware of was Eleanor Roosevelt. And I think we've had like some incredible first ladies all through the years. Eleanor Roosevelt was terrific. Mamie Eisenhower was grand. Jacqueline Kennedy. Pat Nixon was pretty much with it all the way. Who was it? Lady Bird. So I think we've had some very, very impressive first ladies all the way along. As I say, I go back to the first one I remember, one I grew up with was Eleanor Roosevelt. And, You talk about somebody who should be elevated to iconic stature
She was.
and given a halo. She was just fabulous.
But you know, Maria is a very devout Catholic, so I rather doubt that she'll get a divorce. I think it's just gonna be a
I
separation
was about
because,
also to say a separation and living together. Again, they have a very, very big house. So, I mean, I think, plus I'm sure they got more than one. What was that movie with Michael Douglas and Demi Moore, I think they get, or Kathleen Turner? And they can't decide what to do with the house, and they cut it in half, and he lives in half, and she lives in. Funny movie. So again, I think that they've got the real estate, so they've got enough real estate that they really don't have to see each other that often if they don't want to.
You know what's interesting, though? Fascinating to go back to Eleanor Roosevelt, because I'm not so sure that she wouldn't have left Franklin when it was done. He died at with the mistress, and she knew it.
yes, she did.
And they hadn't been together for quite a while in that marriage, unfortunately. And he was a great president, died while he was in office. But as Fritz said, you know, if anybody deserved a halo, it was her. But with that one, I know it's hindsight, but do you think that one would have stuck together? Because, I mean, to die in the mistress's arms, which is pretty well the way it's been reported, how do you turn back the hands of time on that one and just forget it?
Well, you know, I think there are women out there right now who are, you know, could be possible divorcees, and they don't want to be divorced. And they're willing to accept the life as is. I think that happens a lot.
Would you?
I don't know. It's a good question. I really don't know.
If somebody cheated, I could not stay with them. I'd say
Well,
that. Couldn't do it.
sometimes there are reasons for that too. So, you know, sometimes it's not just the person who does the cheating's fault. So, you know, that every case is different, so.
Not the person who does the cheating's fault. Now, how would that be the other person's fault?
Well, could be.
I want to know that.
Well, maybe their sexual life wasn't very satisfying, or
So
maybe it
that's-
was not even in existence.
So that's okay to do it then?
No, I'm not saying it's okay, Scott. I'm not saying it's okay, but I think,
It's forgivable?
yeah, I think you can forgive if the person isn't gonna do it anymore. I mean, you know, forgiveness is important, I think.
Charlie, if this situation happened, maybe it's just a man thing, I don't know. If your wife had an affair with somebody else, would you be able to forgive and forget and go on?
No, I don't think so. Although, you know, it depends on the circumstance. I mean, there have been a lot of this happening, and a lot of couples go back, but yet any little thing that comes up could trigger a separation again, or bring that all up to be, I don't know, it's, if you're going to run around, you better get divorced first.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know. See, if somebody's gonna do it once, in my mind, they're gonna do it again, because why would they have done it once?
You're possibly right about that.
Fritz, do you have that type of forgiveness in your bones if anybody were to cheat on you in the vows of marriage?
Well, I have to say that forgive and forget, don't cast the first stone. I certainly have enough bricks in my glass house that could come crashing through, so again, it depends on the individual circumstances. There are what is it? How many movies have been made about where the wife or the husband falls in somebody else and they hire somebody to do them in or so forth. So I don't think about it. Again, to quote Doris Day, "Que sera, sera. What will be, will be."
I guess my
Go with the flow.
I guess my thought on that is, if I had an affair with somebody, I would expect to be told to hit the road. So I would expect that person to hit the road.
And
Maybe-
that's all right, that's
that-
fine.
That's you.
Yeah,
That's-
there's
that's-
nothing wrong with that, no.
That's me and Charlie, right?
That's right.
I
Darn
don't know
right.
what I would do until I was met with a situation. I mean, you know, your emotions, it all depends.
Let me put it this way. If it was known in your community, because that's where a lot of this starts.
That would be pretty tough to take, you know,
Yes.
because it is a reflection on you, and it's a shame. I mean, it is a shame to you when that happens. So,
I think that's sad, though, that sometimes they shame the person who didn't have the affair. You know, because that person has to carry the burden for not doing anything wrong at all, and I think maybe that's what could lead to the problem.
But just remember, none of us is perfect.
Oh, of course not, of course not. But, I don't know, that's an awful big one. That's an awful big misstep, I think. Charlie, who was your favorite First Lady? We spent a lot of time talking about First Ladies here. Who was your favorite?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Maybe, I think Kennedy.
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline Kennedy, yeah. Although she wasn't the most beautiful person in the world, but she had a lot of class and intelligence, and that's what really matters too.
Elegance.
Elegance.
Yeah.
Elegance.
Yeah, yes.
I
Top-notch.
thought for Betty Ford to be thrust into that position and be as honest as she was about the mastectomy and the alcoholism and going into rehab, I thought that's a heck of a First Lady.
Yes, it is.
And Betty Ford still in the news today, Betty Ford Clinic all the time. Marianne, who do you think was the best?
I'm kind of with Fritz. I think Eleanor Roosevelt had a lot of influence on a lot of people and did a lot of good. But I think most wise of presidents really fill the position very well. I mean, they realize that they have to get out and be with people, and I think Michelle Obama is doing quite well with all the things that she's been doing. And I know that Laura Bush was very into education, and she visited a lot of schools, and I thought she was a classy lady.
Let's jump into the mail.
I should say is a classy lady because she's still living.
Is a classy lady. Let's jump into the mailbag before we end the program on this Monday. I am a new member of a small local organization. We have an email group. Occasionally a member will post information that has nothing directly to do with the organization, usually political in nature. These political emails are petitions to offend me and petitions that offend me. They in no way reflect my beliefs in politics. What should I do? Jessica in Cardington. What do you think, Marianne?
Don't participate. Just back out. Don't contribute. Or if you contribute, tell how you feel.
Do you think that could cause problem in a local organization? Don't cast the first stone?
Well, it could, but you know, I don't know. Putting anything on the internet is a mistake, I think, because there are so many people that have gotten into problems because of certain things they've said or pictures that they have shown. You know, I think simple emails of keeping in touch are fine, but when you start politicizing or giving your opinion or being nasty or gossipy, and then I think you're just asking for problems. I can't imagine belonging to an email club, quite frankly.
Fritz, what do you think?
I'm with Marianne. I'm not even on Facebook. I just, if I want to talk to somebody, I got a telephone. If I want to snail mail them, I send them a letter. I rarely email. So again, I definitely wouldn't be in a club. I don't Twitter. I don't tweet. I don't chat room. I don't go on Facebook. It's just, no, I got other things to do. And if I want to contact them, as I say, that's why Don Amici invented the telephone.
Well, and I think the internet has taken the place of...
Plus, a lot of times there's stuff that ain't true.
Yeah, but the internet has taken, I don't know, I think the internet is, I think our technology is wonderful. I really do. But you know something? I think it's going to do us in. I don't know. There's so much that can happen.
It could be. But you know, I really am starting to wonder, and we're down to the last 2 minutes here, about this whole not true on the internet as opposed to not true anywhere else. I think you have to be smart enough to pick and choose in whatever you look at. I mean, what was the story last week about the picture that was released to the media from the White House about everybody in the Situation Room during the Osama bin Laden thing? All of a sudden, that's been doctored before it was
But
sent to...
who says it's been doctored?
The media, who we always trust. Charlie Evers?
Oh, Scott.
No, last week I said you shouldn't, and somebody told me you should.
Well, the thing of it is, if they have documentation that this is correct, fine, but things go on the internet that are just opinions, and people take them as law.
But I think that happens everywhere. Just like in this email group or at a church gossip. We've always had gossipy people.
That's
Charlie,
true.
we're down to the last minute. Go ahead, Charlie.
Oh, I use the internet quite a bit, but what bugs me on Facebook are people that poke you and do all these other things that you gotta answer. I don't have the time, even though I'm retired, I got all the time in the world, but I can't stand, I don't like games, playing games. I don't like being poked on Facebook and all those other things, but I like it for a form of communication, period.
Right. I'm never sure what that poking means anyways. If you have a question for the mailbag, you can join us on Facebook under the name The Exchange Marion, or email them to us at irmcommunication@gmail.com. We will be back on Tuesday. Thank you for joining us. Make it a great Monday.